Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. So just one thing to talk about, but it is a big thing, and that is the end of Avatar Generation. So if you log into the game right now, in your in-game mailbox, you will get this message from the admin, important notice, end of service date for Avatar Generations. End of service just means basically the game is over, they're shutting down the servers, and if you read this, it's quite small text, but it says December 2nd, 2023, the game will no longer be available for download. As of today, you can't purchase with money items in the game. They've just removed all of that, which is of course the right thing to do. And then they just note that, as a reminder, what that means is you have a month to basically utilize everything that you have on your account in terms of items, currencies, and all that sort of stuff. They do give you another pretty big reward. It's this. You can see here, it's a giant reward thing where they just give you a bit of everything. I think it's like 30. They give you a timeline ticket, a bunch of powerful opponent tickets, currencies all across the board. But probably the most notable thing is they also give you 10 treasure chests, which seems to have like enhanced rewards. And I got like 100 normal tickets and some additional stuff as well. So they're giving you a lot as the game comes to an end. Effectively, you should be able to get some enjoyment out of what is left in the month because you now have a bunch of stuff to use. And nearly every banner in the game is in the game currently, and most of them have lower pity count. So they've brought back the Long Feng banner, which had actually just ended like a little bit ago, with only 60 pity. 60 pity for this. The Azula banner is back, but for 60 pity. This one, as far as I could make out, was down to 20, but I'm not sure if that's just because I had it low from maybe the last time, but it seemed to be down to 20. I did a 10 pull and actually got Ronin Zuko. The Zhao and Yue banner is back for only 60. The Yoon banner is there for 60. The Jeonju and Kelsong banner is back, but it's 200. Kyoshi and Rangi for 60. These two were still in there, and they're in there now for their usual one. The Tagaka banner is here for 60, and then everything else is relatively normal. I think you also get like 20 of each of these. I'd already pulled them from before, but it just speaks to the idea of like, okay, that's a nice little thing to do. The game's coming to an end, but they're giving you a ton of stuff so you can actually like, get that character you missed out on and get a chance to use them for the last month. Fair enough. But I do think that the big thing I want to get across here in terms of my reaction to this is it's disappointing for me. This is a game that since I've had access to it, I have played every day. Now, in some days, a lot of days, that has only been logging in, doing some adventure path stuff, a quick battle or two. Some days spending a little bit longer if I want to kind of like put a team together and stuff like that, grind on the arena. But there's been times where I have played quite a lot of this, like especially say during the Kyoshi update. That was I think a really exciting time for the game when they added the first Timelines content into the game with the rise of Kyoshi. Just getting to see all the Kyoshi art, the Kyoshi locations. That was super, super cool when this one came to the game. And in so many ways, this is what I was most excited for, is like playing the game constantly. So I was prepared for whenever stuff like this would enter the game, and I could get the kind of newer style content that I wasn't as invested in the game when it was just doing the ATLA story and it was like, oh, it's the Imprisoned update, it's the Omashu update. Cool, getting those characters. But the story aspect of that stuff, that adaptation, I didn't really care about. But I think myself and many others really cared about the Kyoshi content that they added in. And that's what we're missing out on. We're forever only going to have that first like half or third of the Kyoshi update, even though more was clearly planned. They had plans to add Korra in, Roku stuff in, Karuk, Yang Chen, Wan stuff into the game, and we're not going to get any of that. That's what we'll miss out on. And this game not existing anymore means we don't get any of that new art. We don't get an adaptation of Kyoshi or other novels or the comics and stuff like that. None of that art happens. None of these models happens. And that's what we don't get new stuff like Talarik Tug, a brand new Kyoshi era character. We don't get characters like this because this game is gone. And there was so much kind of cool aspects to the game of like, hey, look, I have Yoon here. Look, just I'm playing as Yoon in a official Avatar game alongside all these other characters like the Boulder. Look, here's Azula in the game. She just has a comic out right now. Here's Haru. You know, I have another version of Haru down here. Long Feng will go down as like the last, I suppose, new character to enter the game. Here's Suki. And, you know, even you kind of have random characters. Like, here's random Fifth Nation pirate. Firebender pirate. Like, cool stuff. And then, like, yeah, you get, like, here's young Kyoshi. Like, not even Avatar Kyoshi, just Kyoshi servant, basically. But you do then also have actual Avatar Kyoshi. This is what was so cool about this game, is that these characters, you know, you get the art for them, of course. But then you also do get their, you know, skill set and stuff like that. Like, even just going back into, like, Kyoshi there and how she kind of, like, operates, and the idea is, like, she's protective when your other characters get hit. She enters into a vengeance state and then will pretty consistently counterattack to take out those enemies. She has an earthbending attack. She has an airbending attack. But you can also trigger these other kind of more powerful versions of it as well. That was very, very cool to see, and how they worked. Like, Kelsong was actually a super cool character in the way he operates, like defensive, putting up this like air barrier here, and then that would give you access to this really powerful gale force attack. And he had some very cool stuff going on because he did sort of like water and air damage to kind of give you that kind of living typhoon effect. So everything felt like characterful in that regard, of like when they added characters in, they did some very cool stuff. Like even Azula, the idea of like, she's so perfect, status conditions don't really work on her, and then she charges up her abilities and they get better over time, so they like evolve, and then suddenly this one becomes Azure Assault, and if it's charged enough, she'll do Lightning Strike. Super, super cool that they had all this stuff. You know, you have different versions of Aang. This is the starter Aang. This is the Book 3 Peace Aang, who has all these debuff stuff, things going on. More new characters like the Dojo Master, which this is what we're going to miss out on, is that this character, you can just about see the character's face under there. They were going to properly unveil this character in, I think, basically what was planned to be probably the next update, which was going to return to the Dojo Master story, have her take off her mask, revealing that she is a woman, and go over this kind of conflict between her and Tao Wu, I guess a former student, basically. And they were going to kind of contrast like her new students versus her kind of old students, and that was a cool little thing. Similarly, like the Fifth Nation stuff of like Talarik Tug is from the Kyoshi era, but then Kiwok here is an ATLA era character who descends from the Fifth Nation, and we're talking about stuff like her kind of like almost like information coming up, Talarik Tug's diary from the past. Really, really interesting stuff. Like here is Tagaka herself, just like getting the visuals of who like what she looks like to add to the book, the sword and stuff like that. It was super interesting, and you could tell there were passionate Avatar fans on board. Like look at Jeonju, like super, super notable character from the books. Didn't open that up properly, but look at that really, really cool design. And it's just so cool to have this character within the game, because otherwise, like, this is basically one of the only places where novel content has also appeared. It's like this game and the Avatar Legends role-playing game, but it's more visually appealing here because there actually is visuals like associated with it. Similarly, like we had Jiang from the comics was in here. And while we didn't have many other comic characters, like they were on the verge of adding a lot of this stuff into the game. And that's kind of what was so exciting. Now, you see we have Gyatso here as well. The characters were super cool. Now, the problem, if there was a problem with this game, is that you go to the map and the furthest content that we have is technically the Glacial Temple, but that is a new scenario, more of a puzzle type thing related to some of the new content, new characters. The furthest we went in the actual story was Imprisoned, the prison rig. So only episode 6, nearly a year of content for this game. Plus you have to factor in that the game was in beta for like quite a long time in the kind of second stage of last year. And it's like in basically a year plus, they didn't even get half of a season's worth of content out. And it felt like they could never quite keep up with the need to do more. Now, my thoughts are that I think the story content probably should have been focused entirely on new stuff and just keep the characters coming out to keep the ATLA content going. Just because I don't think an adaptation of Aang's story is like super, super needed. But that's the frustrating thing. Similarly, we were just about to get the second part of the guilds update. Like you see here, raids coming in the future update. No, it's not. And this is where we were going to get Father Glowworm. This is what is so frustrating about this, is that like behind the scenes in the game, there is official art of like Father Glowworm. And we were actually going to get that. And as far as we're aware, like I think they were going to, when they finally did this, like announced that like, oh yeah, like we basically had Brian work on this art as well. Because they said one of the raid bosses they literally worked directly with Brian to design, and I'm pretty sure it was meant to be Father Glowworm, because everyone who has seen the Father Glowworm official art acknowledges it's like really, really nice. So no raids. So effectively the guild stuff amounted to click this button every day, get coins, spend them in the shop here on stuff like this. That was really all it is. And again, we were potentially weeks away from getting that before the layoffs happened. And that's what's so unfortunate, is that the game was stopped before it, I think, really got a chance to kind of fulfill its potential. Because I think that's another clear thing with this, is that I don't think this game failed because it's a bad game. I don't think this game failed because the developers are bad. I don't think this game failed because it was not popular. It failed basically because of upper management issues, because of what seems like the company above the development company having financial issues basically, and they had to lay people off, and they chose to go in hard on the development team for this game. And with so few people left working on the game, what can we do? Now, it's obviously very frustrating that they seem to have come to that conclusion that like, well, we're not bringing in more people, the people left can't make more, we just have to end it. And the fact that it doesn't seem like anything is going to step in to save it, it's very frustrating, because the amount of stuff that we probably won't get to see that was planned, and that includes new story content and visuals for characters and stuff like that, we're going to miss out on quite a lot because of this game. And I think a lot of people will just be like, oh, I never liked that game, who cares? But in terms of the amount of sort of art assets that would have been super cool to see for everyone, that's a major, major loss. And I think just it doesn't look good for Avatar, for an Avatar game to enter end of service like this. But I think from the community, as someone who is part of the community on like the Discord and stuff like that, there was a passionate community with this game. And we wanted more, and people, I think, were super willing to support this. But even at the height of its popularity, probably in or around the Kyoshi update, heading into that Azula update, when things were at their kind of highest, they couldn't quite keep up with the, I think, demand and expectations. But it speaks to the idea of like, if you deliver a really good game that can update in the way that is needed for a game like this, I think there's a fandom here within the Avatar franchise that will, support your game. It's just there needs to be that support behind the scenes, because that is completely my thoughts on this. Is that I don't think we have really any evidence to super suggest that like this game is failing because of lack of support. Because if it hasn't been making money in the last couple of weeks, it's because there's been no new content and no communication about new content, which they haven't been able to make new content, I guess, since the layoffs. Again, 80%, give or take, of the development team laid off. So, it was a huge hit here. Huge hit. Like, basically everyone gone in a day. Remember the extent to which this was kind of sudden. They did the live stream covering the details on the Azula banner and a couple of other things. And then pretty much a couple of hours after that live stream ended, basically everyone on that live stream was fired, plus many, many more people. That's how bad things were. On the eve, effectively, of launching this, you got rid of 80% of your development team, and this had to be delayed. and that's the level of kind of mismanagement from above. Like, that's not the development team doing anything wrong. It's just everything surrounding the game elsewhere caused a lot of these problems to actually happen. Because otherwise, like, I think there was a lot of potential in this game. Like, the arena is frustrating, I think, because they let it go unbalanced for long periods of time. And stuff like, for a while, the brothers here, Juro and Guro, were just super difficult to deal with. Moonslayer Zhao is a menace. They added Azula on top of already like Ronin Zuko, which was running rampant around the arena, and so on. And it meant that like the meta for the most part is Fire Nation stuff of like, ooh, look at that team. That looks like a team that I would never want to face. Like, okay, these two together. No, on top of this, and on top of the Warden, who's surprisingly one of the better characters, that doesn't sound like a fun team. But if they had kept the balance up, I think there could have been something really, really good here. That's kind of my take on this, because I maintain that the core mechanics of this game are actually really interesting. Like the idea of how the characters are set up, where they have a passive ability, a basic ability, and then an advanced ability. Plus, as you level them up, you get these mastery levels that increase and give them kind of like extra abilities. This is not just this basic thing of like, even though the characters technically only have 2 attacks, there's a variety of different ways to use them, and that actually makes it into something I think quite interesting. So I'll just play some of this while I'm talking here. I'll go in with my my Team Avatar team here, so you can see here Pisang, Chaos Zuko, Earth Kingdom Toph, and Bending Master Katara, with the support of Appa to give them all a lot more health. So the idea of this team is that it's a little bit slower, especially like Aang and Zuko, but if it gets the chance to get rolling and Aang starts giving buffs to characters, Zuko gets going, this can quickly turn into a team that can do like a lot. Now, the enemies here are probably a little under-leveled here to properly show this off, but there's a lot going on here. Like straight away, Toph boosts the health of Team Avatar members, so lots of damage immediately. But yeah, this was in a way a surprise to me, because I had expected them maybe to announce end of service like weeks ago, maybe a month or 2 ago. But the fact that we had actually gone a bunch of weeks, and they had actually like added, say, like the Long Feng update, which was new content in, gave me hope that like, I guess they're continuing just slower than usual, but they might be able to get back on track if it proves to continue to be a success. But I'm guessing they only had certain content that was like maybe 90-95% of the way that was done, and they finished that up, and everything else is left in enough of a kind of unfinished state that the team can't put together. That's my guess about what happens here. But anyway, a little bit on the tactics here. Like, the way Aang works is that you want to use him as a combo character with other characters. So if we do Toph here with the combo of Aang, he'll activate his skill. So you can see here, bond, defense up, and that gives defense up to every member of the team. He also gives echo to a specific character as well. And when Aang gets 2 bonds, he can then do a secondary attack every turn, and his attacks are giving buffs and debuffs, you know, to all around the place as well. So Peace Aang is really cool when you actually get him going, which we might get to see here. The way this Zuko works is he has this buff Inner Flame, which his other attacks kind of consume to give you an extra boost. So for instance, if we use his advanced skill here, we'll actually combo advanced skill here. So Zuko's going to get an extra turn, but Aang will get a bond again, defense up on everyone. And obviously we get Zuko to go again here. Then we'll use his attack over here. In this case, Aang already has 2 bonds. We could do it again, and Aang would get another defense buff up, but instead here, I'm just going to do the basic attack over here. Now, Aang gets to go. He has 2 bonds, so what happens here is that he can just use his normal attack. Doesn't do much, but then, because he gets this extra turn, he goes from having air and fire as his basic attacks to now having water and earth as his basic attacks. So water is pretty good here. Gives skill nullify to all Team Avatar members, which is basically block the next attack. And then you can see we can just start Aang's kind of combo stuff going again here. Another bond, defense. And then if I'd used Aang's fire attack, that gives attack up. The air attack gives immunity when you attack using a bond. So it gets going pretty quickly. Obviously there's other combination of skills that work without as much like time setup, but it speaks to the idea that there was potential here. They probably just let it get out of control a little bit too quickly, with certain characters, I think, being just way too kind of overpowered ultimately. But yeah, I suppose just to give some final thoughts here, like, there's a month left here. I'm going to probably just play off and on occasionally. Like, I kind of want to be kind of there playing when the game turns off, because I have enjoyed having this game this year. Like, having just an Avatar video game that is, at least was, getting updated occasionally and has like new content in it. It was exciting. Like, to me, 100%. This game is a million times better than Avatar Quest for Balance. And I have no problem saying that. Is this the game we ultimately want? No, but I think there was potential for this to get to a point where it was what we needed. And just showing this again, the timeline stuff. Like, imagine this game in a year and a half if it had gotten consistent updates. Like, even by the end of the year, we have this, we have a Korra section here. Maybe next year they add Yang Chen in, Wan's era. Imagine this game packed with content, and you have all those eras, all those characters. That would have been so cool to get. Like, if you've read the Yang Chen novels, like, obviously Yang Chen, imagine Kavik within the game. More art about Kavik would have been super cool to have, because Kyoshi fans got a bit of that, because we have, you know, Kyoshi, but we also have Rangi here. Very cool. I know Rangi especially was one of those characters people really freaked out about, that like, okay, we're getting new art for Rangi. Super cool. And even just like if we go to, say, like the summon banners, like, and you get to see some of the more kind of clean art for these characters, like as we go through it here. There's Yoon, very nice. This banner was fantastic and hyped when it came out, because it was one of the big Peace Chaos banners here, representing such a big scene early on in that book. This image, of course, super popular for Kyoshi fans, and especially fans of this ship. It came from this game. And it's just the idea of this game never existed, the amount of art that we wouldn't have. And that's what we're really missing out on, is this happening for the Yang Chen novel, for Shadow of Kyoshi, like all those other characters that we're potentially never maybe going to get a chance to see, because this game doesn't exist anymore. And that's my main thing here, is just we are going to miss out on so much that they had planned. Their new content, adaptation stuff that they had going. I do think this is actually a really notable loss here. And I know for some people, if you don't play the game, you probably won't feel that way. But I think if you are someone who keeps up with all the Avatar news, like especially like new pieces of art that comes out, Avatar Generations kind of art drops effectively when these bigger updates happened, that was actually a pretty notable thing. And I think we will feel that if there is no kind of replacement ultimately. So it's going to be interesting to see like how much of this stuff ends up maybe coming out in some way or another, and what happens here. But frustrating for sure. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this. Avatar Generations shutting down December 2nd, 1 month to go. What are your thoughts? What are your best memories from Avatar Generations? But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.